It's that time of the season when struggling managers fear the worst. Their jobs are on the line, and it doesn't help when there are out-of-work managers itching to get back in. But what of the biggest one of them all? Why has it taken Jose Mourinho this long to find work again? Who will take him? And crucially, where does the truth lie when it comes to the once special one? Hey everyone. Hope you're having a fantastic week. Here in Singapore, by the way, we're rubbing shoulders for a few days with the likes of Neymar, Roberto Firmino, Sadio Mane and Philippe Coutinho, thanks to the international break. But the club football narrative right now is all about potential sackings and appointments. So we thought it would be good to finally get around to talking properly about Jose Mourinho. And boy, there's a lot to say. For instance, why has he recently been losing out to others when it comes to the bigger jobs around the continent? And that despite Team Jose's unrivaled ability to spin and schmooze him into the headlines and onto the TV. But there must be some bosses who are tempted to turn to a proven winner and discover whether this one is still special. And to help me with all of that is a regular guest on this show, a man in the know, a man who's covered Jose for many a year, and that's Dom Fifield, who now writes long form and writes wonderfully for The Athletic. Dom, great to have you with us. Now, I enjoyed your Stephen Corker piece, really enjoyed reading that. What else have you got recently published or in the pipeline?
I had a nice piece with Steve Coppell talking about forgotten managers, a manager who's keen to be working in Indonesia or Southeast Asia, certainly in the future. So maybe somebody you guys will see over there in the not too distant future.
Yeah. And someone we've seen plenty of in Asia, of course. He's very attached to Asia. All right, let's get straight into this one. The reason why we're doing this today is this. You're going to be reading, and will have been reading, a lot of stories like this. Mourinho emerges as bookies' favourite to replace a guy who actually has a job in a position that isn't available right now. Or this, Mourinho himself said to be eyeing a position. Where does the truth lie in all this? Or even Julian Nagelsmann doing a super job, as far as I can see, at Leipzig, called the mini Mourinho, remember, linked with a job again that is still not vacant, that of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at Manchester United. However, we have to accept that there are certain managers who, for one reason or another, might be perceived to be under pressure, even if in the case of Zidane, you are actually top of La Liga right now. So, the likes of Pochettino, Solskjaer and Marco Silva. Now, just a quick look here. If you can make out the numbers at the bottom there, these are clubs that decided that they should get rid of a manager in the international break in October or November. And as you can probably make out there, in every single case down there, the percentage of points per game before the sacking and after saw an improvement to the point that they escaped relegation, survived, or whatever it may have been, even if Swansea, after Guidolin, had to use 2 more managers to ensure that. Anyway, Dom, let's just set this all up right now by saying, I think it's probably proven that this is a time when it can work if you change your manager. By and large, for clubs that are struggling to avoid relegation, do you think it's likely that we'll see biggish clubs make a change in the international break?
Well, it's possibly in the November international break, maybe more than this one, when I think we get a better idea at that stage of a season where your campaign is going. And it all depends again on availability and the suitability of those candidates to come in and make a swift replacement. If you're talking about a club like Manchester United or Tottenham Hotspur, then it's yet more upheaval. It's certainly in United's case. So it would really depend upon who is out there and available. And obviously, there's Jose Mourinho hanging over it all as a potential candidate. With the others, with those struggling at the foot, yes, absolutely. October, November time international breaks is a perfect opportunity to make that change and allow the new man a couple of weeks just to look at the resources at his disposal.
Yep. Let's zoom in on Jose right now, and this is it. We now know that he left Manchester United last December. What's happened since then? What has happened is a steady stream of headlines like this one in January. Oh, I'm not retiring. I'm going to work again soon. The following month, yeah, I'll be back in work, he says, in June, according to this headline. Okay? The next month, right, okay, my friends keep telling me, you know, enjoy my time off, but I can't. I need to be working again. Hire me someone. Then on to another headline here. Yeah, I am going to work. I'm just waiting for the right one. I'm not rushing into it. I am the special one after all. Then, you see where I'm going with this? The next month here. Okay, enough's enough. I'm bored now. I want to be back. Come on and hire me. it goes on. Mourinho Hunt's job. I've had enough. I've had enough. And this one came along once the brand new season was up and running. So, Dom, I think as much as anything, we have to explain to people who will see a disconnect here, because the nature of the modern media, I think, and I'm going to say it's a bit sinister, is that they can be manipulated so easily. And in Mourinho's case, he is box office, so people want to know what he says. He's also got a tremendous team that helps him manipulate. So that's why we've been seeing these stories. And you might say, well, hang on a minute, didn't I just read that he's going to be working next month? Why isn't he working? Right? Am I right to say that?
Yeah, look, Jose's always been a great manipulator of the media. Ever since he came to England in 2004, he's used us to get his particular message out there. I remember turning up at press conferences at Chelsea all the time, and we'd have a certain line of questioning we'd like to go down, but it became very obvious after a couple of questions that actually he wanted to go down a completely different route, and he made sure that what he gave us was box office still. You never left the Jose Mourinho press conference back then without a line that would, hold the back page of your newspaper. That was just the way he acted. So he does manipulate. We also miss him. The Premier League also misses him, I think. I mean, maybe not so much in the latter days at United, and certainly in the latter days at Chelsea the second time round, when he did look almost broken by it all, by the toxicity around the place. But having a figure of that charisma on the scene meant a lot to the Premier League. It helped the Premier League, and he's missed. So I think there's a desire within the media probably to get him back in at some point.
Yeah, I can fully understand that. A bit of feedback here from Wesley, who says Mourinho's always been a combustible figure. His career of 3 seasons and bridges burned probably put off clubs which are looking for stability. Plus, Mourinho's been marvellous as a pundit, eloquent, humorous when he's his relaxed self rather than the sour and uptight Jose at the sidelines. Yeah, this is a really good point that you make here, Wesley, because I read this super article by Jonathan Leo, I think it was in The Independent just before he moved on to The Guardian, in which he talked about this, how Mourinho has made himself wanted again. And in this piece, I'll just flash up a couple of pages here, he points out how brilliant he is on television, how charismatic he is, because he's been doing it for Sky Sports, hasn't he, recently. Go and find the article yourself. I mean, you might make out a few things here, but it's lovely. He's choreographed his return. He went on stage and told Real Madrid how much he loved them, almost in a kind of a come and get me plea, as they say. We move on to another one. He finds himself now in a position where, as Jonathan Liu concludes in his article, somebody might say maybe he can come in and do a job. Maybe it will get a bit toxic, but he might win us a couple of trophies first of all. Tom, tell me about Jose Mourinho as a TV pundit, because I don't like him anymore as a sour, grumpy manager on the touchline or in a press conference being bitter and twisted, but I love what he has to say on the television. Yeah,
he's warmed up. He really has warmed up, and he's a great listen, a great watch. He offers insight. That's what any good pundit does, and I think there's almost a complacency to some punditry, whereas he's come in and he's almost shook it up. He explains why things happen in matches. Yeah. And that is the key, to give your audience an idea of why a tactical switch happens, why a tactical switch works. That is what the insight he offers. And you listen to him and you have to just respect what he says, because he knows that game. He's fresh out of managerial work at the moment. He remembers how to beat Premier League teams still, the elite Premier League teams. Yeah. He just offers an insight that not many people on the planet can offer.
The only thing, though, Dom, is, as someone who works in TV, I've got a good sense of it. He won't come cheap. I mean, this is the same guy. He's working for Sky Sports right now, right? I remember I was living in England in 2014 when he signed a 3-year deal to be an ambassador for BT Sports, of course, which is the direct competitor for Sky. Now he's on Sky, but it won't be it'll be an open-ended deal, won't it? Because it won't be you're working for a whole season, because he'll have a clause in there saying, but I want to go off and manage someone. So we have to enjoy it whilst it lasts, don't we?
Absolutely right, yeah. And Sky wouldn't have employed him thinking that they were going to get him for the whole season, I'm sure. Jose is omnipresent. We see him over here on adverts as well, which I find staggering, quite frankly, because he can't need the money. But that is, he wants to be out there. You're right. It's feeding his ego. It's being out there in the public eye and angling always for that next job when it comes along. And I'm sure he's convinced it will come along soon.
And that's what we'll do next. So we're going to have a little look again. We're going to bring the aspect of spin back into this one. And we're going to say, right, what does he try to maneuver his way towards here? Whether it be dangling himself in front of a La Liga club, a giant, whether it be former allies of his, like his former CEO at Chelsea, coming out and saying, United, you shouldn't have sacked him, and all those stats about his numbers and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's. Something's building, but where does he go? Where can he succeed? Can he still succeed? Questions I'll ask Dom when we come back. We're doing something a bit different tonight, aren't we? We're talking about this man, Jose Mourinho, and speculating on why he hasn't worked again since United, where he might work, and you're having plenty to say as well. A couple of comments here that I think tee us up nicely for this part. Oja saying, Jose first needs to shed his autocratic image and adopt a player's manager to be employable again, else it's tough to return to any club at his terms. Johnny Michael Tan saying, Mourinho's main issue is his arrogance, his need to walk into a club with either ready-made world-class players or where he's given the coffers to spend huge. Openly running down his own players when chips are down doesn't make him a proper motivator of young guns. And these are things that we'll touch on. But I'd like to get into one thing first. There's so much confusion around him. Now, let's travel around the world and see who he's been linked with over the last few months. As I said a couple of times, Madrid kept on going on, openly saying, you know, I love the place, want to be back here, happiest time I've had in football here, want to return to Madrid. Didn't seem that happy at the time. So that's Spain, right? That's opened up that potential there. Quizzed about this, talked about his happiness there, fine. Let's move on to other countries. Where else was he linked with? Apparently there was a big offer from Benfica straight after Manchester United. Rejected. We understood. On we go. This was AC Milan. It was an article I read, a columnist talking about a purported link between him and Milan, way before what's happening right now at that football club. France, yeah, he put it out there himself. Mourinho saying, yeah, love France, Ligue 1, why not? Okay. I mean, this is when it gets a bit confusing. China, what was this one about here? That was never going to happen, surely, was it? But yet someone there is saying that he was ruled out. Was that ever going to happen? Dom Fifield of The Athletic is with me as we pick our way through this compelling but sometimes confusing story. Dom, over the last few months, have you really at any stage thought to yourself, yeah, got it, Jose is going to go there now? Well,
the Real Madrid rumours never go away. And the fact that he appeared to be trying to rebuild the bridges earlier in the summer, I think was quite telling. I think they're obviously the type of club that would suit his ego, that would allow him to compete immediately in terms of, well, for trophies, both domestically and in European competition. I think much would depend on whether Sergio Ramos would have him back, probably, but you know, that is the platform. That is the type of platform that he would relish. But beyond that, I mean, we've for years, when he was in England, he used to talk about one day managing the Portuguese national team. Clearly now that's not an option. He's not something he's pursuing at the moment. He still sees his future in club management.
Yeah, okay. So let's refine this, Dom. Let's refine this. Sorry, I'm just going to move on now because let's try and get into what might be an impediment here. I think Dom's hit on something there, talking about needing to be a ready-made club with the coffers and the ability to do this one. There is this sense that he's become a toxic influence. Now, there's nothing wrong with what he does in a football sense. This was his incredible record up to and including Real Madrid, which might have ended in acrimony, but it still had 3 trophies in his time there to make it 20 at the clubs that he managed, significantly from Porto onwards. His win percentage might have dropped from 62 to 58.5. That's not too much of a problem because at Chelsea and Manchester United, he still managed to pick up 5 trophies. But those 2 spells were characterised by horrible dressing rooms and toxic relationships and all sorts of acrimony when he left. Plus, what about this financial side of things here? It was revealed in United's financial report for last year that it actually cost them £19.6 million to sack him because, remember, he'd gone in, won trophies, extended his contract, then cost them a lot of money. Now, that means that in his career to this point, Jose Mourinho, who didn't get any money from Madrid because they parted on mutually acceptable terms, has actually taken some £27.5 million of Roman Abramovich's money, plus that best part of £20 million from United, to mean that he has earned £47 million just by getting sacked. Now, Dom, I'm going to come to you quickly on this one because, okay, there are also headlines that wouldn't have been unnoticed away from the football pitch here. Dom, just quickly, I'm looking at a negative here, and that's one thing that strikes me as a problem. He can be mighty expensive one way or another, can't he?
Yeah, but anyone who employs Jose Mourinho knows that, and a lot of these clubs have made the mistake of offering him long-term contracts after one lump of success, and then seen it all unravel in the period afterwards. You'd like to think that future clubs would treat it slightly more sensibly. We know there's a shelf life there, probably 3 years at most at any one of these clubs. Any future employers should bear that in mind when hiring him. But if you're going to compete for Jose Mourinho's signature, you've got to have a big wallet anyway. We know that.
Okay. I'll tell you what, Tom. I'm going to just jump in here again because we accept that. Okay, we understand now that he has a shelf life. Okay, there's a certain model we think to the way that Mourinho operates these days. Let's move this on now to another couple of headlines I'd like to get to here, which talk about another major problem here. Now, this was Ramon Calderon, the former Madrid chief, turning around and saying, the reason why he didn't come back and won't come back is that senior figures in the dressing room did not want him, refused to have him back. And of course, you do find yourself wondering now just how Eden Hazard might feel if he was mooted as a replacement there. This was interesting. This was a story saying Christian Pulisic, now of Chelsea, formerly, of course, of Dortmund, who had been linked with a move to Manchester United, was told by his own father, you shouldn't go there. Don't work with Mourinho. He is not someone who's going to advance your cause. Okay, he's a guy who's struggling to get into Chelsea's team right now. But still, Dom, I think the point we have to really get into now, and this is, I think, the main thing is, I know people at the clubs that he's most recently worked at in England, and both clubs, I've been told by people very close to them, that he changed. His personality became confrontational, his man management skills were non-existent, he was controlling, and it led to what we now describe as a toxic situation at the football club. I would imagine that goes out on the players' grapevine around the biggest clubs in Europe, and there might be this resistance perhaps in dressing rooms, if they have that much power, to saying, we don't want him.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I suspect a lot of that is born of the success enjoyed by his great rival Pep Guardiola, whether that be at Barcelona or Manchester City. Look, it would depend whether the dressing room is that powerful, whether figures within that dressing room can influence owners. Because if you hired Jose Mourinho, even Manchester United enjoyed some short-term success, the League Cup, the Europa League in that first season. He does win you immediate trophies. He does a good job at first. But yeah, you're not hiring him for the long term. You're hiring him for 3 years at most. And actually, your club might not be in that great state when he leaves. There could be issues in that dressing room that you need to heal. And that is the other reality of Jose Mourinho.
Yeah, okay, well, we've painted, I think, a fairly negative picture so far in terms of trying to analyse why he might not be hired. Let's get onto a reminder for everybody of when he's good, what he's good at. And I think, Dom, let's remind ourselves that he is still one of the best out there. He's one of the best. Look at him, with Paulo Ferreira and company, where it all started, and then Chelsea. We know that this guy can win you things, right? It's just a question of, can he still do it? Will he still, in the modern game, because he's essentially a coach who negates the opposition, can he flourish and win?
Yes, he can. Of course he can. I mean, I don't know whether he could come to England at any club other than Manchester City and Liverpool and win the Premier League, because all the other clubs are playing such a massive game of catch-up. But look, I've got a document open on my screen here, a list of his honours, and it goes from above the screen to below the screen. You can't. It's just remarkable what he's won over his career. He is a natural-born winner. And there will be a lot of clubs that will see that list of honours and will think that he is the man to take them to the next level. But they just have to bear in mind the baggage that he brings and the other side to it. But, clubs are willing to take that risk. They want the glitter, they want the glory, and that's what he can bring. Yeah,
absolutely. A little bit of feedback coming in from Jerome. When I say a little bit, I mean quite a long bit of feedback here. Mourinho is still and will always be special. Yeah, he took every club he managed to major trophies. It's just Ed Woodward was impatient and wanted to go back to success during the Fergie era. Hey, even Moyes was a better manager than Solskjaer. Perfect heir for Ferguson, but sadly didn't get enough time because he was succeeding Ferguson, who led. Yeah, there is that. The tricky one about this as well is the United one. I think I'll get Dom's take on that in just a minute in terms of what that will have done for his reputation there. But I also want to talk about his old sparring partner Arsene Wenger when we come back, and whether we're going to see him in any meaningful action as a coach or manager again. That's next. All right, welcome back. special once more, we wonder. Dom Fifield's with me, Dom of The Athletic, of course. Dom, tell me a little bit about this Manchester United thing that's going on. It's very interesting, isn't it, how revisionism occurs. Solskjaer's having a horrible time, we know that. So now his numbers are put up against Jose's, and everyone's using it to say, Jose was right. He was a miracle worker in coming second in the league and everything like that. But you can't do that, can you? Because you have to treat them all in their own case, right?
Absolutely. Look, Jose Mourinho did do a fantastic job finishing second with that United team. But the problems at that club run a lot deeper. The chaos behind the scenes, the lack of forward planning, the rather haphazard nature of their transfer policy, and basically the legacy of the Ferguson era, which was so successful, they've never really recovered since then. Mourinho did wonderfully well to win the 2 trophies in his first season, and the finishing second was actually, as he claims, a good achievement. However, the way that it unravelled and the toxicity of that club in that last season, his position was untenable by the end. Yeah, exactly. So forget the numbers here. Let's just move this on to a little bit more feedback here. This is very interesting. This is Imran talking about this link with Spurs. Jose's a winner. He's successful wherever he's been. Time for Daniel Levy to take a different approach if Poch decides to leave. If Poch decides to leave. Ng Chao Yong here saying Mourinho will relish a new challenge back in the Premier League with Spurs. He just needs to make some tweaks to set up his own Mourinho-style team, with Kane playing a Drogba-like target man role in his lineup. Oh, you've given it a bit of thought there. Dom, Levy and Mourinho in the same sentence. Does that work for you? Never. Sorry. I mean, the fracture of Spurs' relationship with Chelsea during Mourinho's time there is enough to put me off that idea. I just can't see that working. Levy runs his club in a particular way. The money that he has spent this summer is a slightly removed from his previous tactics, but the idea of him working with Mourinho on a day-to-day basis, not a chance. Spurs is about long-term planning, as we've just basically confirmed. Mourinho is a 3-year cycle man, and they're not ready for that at Spurs. This wouldn't work. All right, Dom, I just want to put one headline up right now. This is the only thing I want to talk about right now, and this was Arsene Wenger. Remember him? It's interesting, this, because there's talk about him doing a job with FIFA, and of course Arsene Wenger, he's in the public eye. He does a lot of work with Bein, I think it probably is, or someone like that. But he actually has said that I've rejected Premier League offers, and this is the bit that interested me, Dom, because with Arsene Wenger, loyalty to Arsenal his legacy at Arsenal is such that would preclude, I'm sure, him working in the Premier League. But it did make me wonder whether Arsene Wenger would have a top European club job still in him or not. Yeah, I thought that he might be made for a job back in France, possibly. I think when Monaco looked as if things were picking up there, that looks maybe go back down south of France and work his miracle down there. He looks to be somebody that's got plenty to offer, but again, you're not looking. In the old days, when Wenger arrived at Arsenal, it was very much you were planning for the future. We didn't think that future would extend the time that it did. I mean, the remarkable tenure over in North London. He obviously wouldn't be able to do that again in the sheer length of time. But you look at him; he looks like a manager that really wants to be planning still. So maybe even a director of football role where you could sort of impose a philosophy on a club would make more sense for us, and that's something I would have thought he could do in the Premier League, to be honest. All right, Dom, just quickly, we're going to take this back to one last thing, which is Jose Mourinho. The show's been about him here, and Johnny Michael... Oh, so this is Arsene Wenger saying Wenger's nicknamed Professor because he's a thinker-strategist, unfortunately. It was a different time, different era. Okay, so maybe not Wenger. Mohamed saying Wenger's a master in developing young players. He should be an Arsenal as an advisor. So, okay, so we don't think that he should manage right now. Just quickly, in the time that's left to us, Dom, Jose Mourinho, will we see him popping up at a big club anytime soon? Yes, I think so. And I'd keep an eye on what happens to Nuno at Wolves and how successful he is, and wonder whether Jorge Mendes' connections there see Mourinho joining a very ambitious club with a lot of financial clout behind him. Yeah, okay, so the Jorge Mendes connection there, the connection there makes sense. Our producer Dan has been saying Everton. He reckons that if Moshiri's prepared to spend all that money, maybe Everton could be a shout. Again, this is the sort of thing that you will have a comment on. Get to our Facebook page if you haven't done already. Put your thoughts down below the line and let us know what you think is going to happen. Dom, thanks so much for that today. I know we've sort of roamed around a bit, but it was fun roaming. Thank you. Thanks for having me on. Dom Fifield signing off there. Okay, Friday's show will be reflective of the fact that it's an international break right now, and we'll be
taking a look at things from Europe to Asia, where there's certain Brazilian flair right now. I hope you look forward to that one as much as I do. See you then. Bye-bye.